Good afternoon, everyone. We're going to take just a minute while folks come into the room. We're excited to have you here. We are just really grateful to have these excellent speakers to talk about safety in the workplace. We're going to take a little bit of time at the beginning for introductions and go over the panel. And then each presenter will do their individual presentations. We'll have time for questions at the end, and then we'll close. I'd like to just say, first of all, that we've engaged this automatic live captioning for today, and it can be translated into other languages. I just want you to feel free to ask questions of Cherie if you have any. This captioning just helps people with hearing loss or deafness to be able to read and engage with this presentation. And Cherie will put instructions into the chat box. And if you would, all of you, just place your name and organization and your preferred pronouns and where you're located in the chat box. And that way we all can kind of see where each other is from. And then if during these presentations you have questions, just put the questions in the chat and we'll keep track of them and make sure that the presenters get the questions at the end. So we also want you to know that we will be sending out a recording of this. We will have the slide decks included, the resources, as I mentioned, the replay of this video, as well as the chat box resources. To everyone who registered, and then those will live on our website for a period of time, so folks can go back and watch at their leisure. So if you have any technical issues, just feel free to reach out to Cherie. She's on the Zoom call, and that's where we are right now. I think what I'm going to do now is just take a moment and have just really, first of all, thank the Department of Labor and Industries, Division of Occupational Safety and Health, and the Refugee Artisan Initiative. The three speakers that we have today are outstanding in their fields, and we would not be able to get this wisdom without such extraordinary leadership. So I am going to just ask each of the presenters to introduce themselves and their organization, then I'll do a brief introduction for WSMA. Rick, would you go first?
Certainly. Hi, I'm Rick Goggins. I'm with the L&I Ergonomics program. My pronouns are he, his. I'm wearing a blue flannel plaid shirt, and my background today is blurred.
And then Erin, why don't you go next, and then Ming Ming.
Great. I'm Erin Nutter. I work with Department of Labor and Industries in the Division of Occupational Safety and Health. I'm a risk management consultant. And today I am wearing a blue shirt that says "Be Kind" on it. And I have a background of cedar paneling.
Hello, my name is Ming Ming Chung Edelman. I'm the founder, executive director of Refugee Artisan Initiative, short for RAY, like a ray of sunshine, because my background right now it's through a window of sun ray. And I have she and her pronouns. I have a short haircut. I just get it cut really short, close to my ears. I'm wearing a purple sweater and a gray vest to one of my favorite combo of colors. I'm very happy to be here today.
Wonderful. Welcome, all three of you. Thank you so much. Again, my name is Lisa Smith. I use she, her pronouns. I'm fortunate to be the executive director of the Washington State Microenterprise Association. And I'd love, Cherie, if you would, to introduce yourself.
Hi, everyone. My name is Cherie Reeves-Spare. I'm with WSMA. Today, I'm wearing a black turtleneck. I wear glasses and have graying hair. And my background is blurred on my Zoom screen.
I've got a blue shirt and blurred background as well. All right, so without further ado, I am going to share my screen and say, first of all, welcome. WSMA is a nonprofit here in Washington State. We are excited to have these three excellent speakers. We're joined by L&I, as we mentioned earlier, and the Refugee Artisan Initiative. I mentioned these introductory comments. So WSMA is really focused on building the capacity of nonprofits in Washington State that really dedicate their time every day to help strengthen the very smallest businesses in Washington. And so we do it in 3 ways: with training and technical assistance, grant making, and resource coordination. So what we want to make sure is that we lower the barriers to business ownership. And today is really important because in order to be successful in business, you have to have a safe workplace. When your workers are safe, you reduce costs and you create a thriving work and productive environment. And that's one of the core values that we have in this presentation today. Some examples of the trainings we've done in the past around cooperatives or healthcare or working with people with disabilities. These are today, the event today is one of the kinds of training and technical assistance programs we provide. We also provide small grants to nonprofits throughout Washington so that they can better reach and serve very small businesses with training, technical assistance, and financing and access to financing. And finally, we help connect the dots for business owners to find the resources they need through Evergreen BizLink. And anyone can go to Evergreen BizLink day or night, check out what resources are available, put the kind of business you have and the kind of organizations you're looking for, the services you need, and up will come the exact or the right resources right where you're located. You can reach us in these different platforms. We're excited to be here, and we look forward to seeing all of you at some point if you have any additional questions. So without further ado, I want to just begin by thanking our presenters and asking, first of all, Rick to go ahead. I'm sorry, Erin to begin. Erin is the Risk Management Consultant, Region 4, with the Washington State Department of Labor and Industries, Division of Occupational Safety and Health. So we'll begin with Erin, then we'll go to Rick, and then end with Ming Ming. Go ahead, Erin.
Great, thank you. So as mentioned before, I'm Erin Nutter, mentioned a couple of times. And what I'd love to hear repeated is L&I consultation. As business owners, it's a great resource. So tell you a little bit about my background. I have 26 years at Labor and Industries. I have a degree in industrial safety, and I'm currently working as a risk management consultant. So I work with all of the businesses, large and small out there, focusing on small businesses, and I am a resource for them. I really, really liked the description that was given of this webinar. It fits exactly what L&I consultation provides, exactly what we do. The description where it indicates workers are getting injured, and yes, they are. And then it indicates that we need to implement safe workplace practices, and that's exactly what we do, and that's exactly what we help businesses do. So consultation is a great resource for all of you out there. So if you're here, if you're looking at this webinar right now, or if you're looking at the video later, congratulations, you're in the right place. This is where you're going to get the right resources connected to you for your business to make sure that you have those safe workplaces, workplace practices. So before anyone gets hurt, before we have any of those injuries, what do you do to prepare and prevent and prepare? Because we definitely want to say prevent first. So what do? Is you talk to some consultants. All of these consultants are available to you out there. We really work with as a proactive approach. We want to get there before the injuries happen. Frequently, we get called out as a reactive measure when something has gone wrong. Our preference is to get out there before that. That means that you to call us and invite us out so that we can make all of those things happen. So these no-fee confidential consultation services include safety. Those are the folks that are going to help you with things that can hurt you, tools, procedures, equipment, all of the things that you need to be in compliance with as well. Industrial safety, industrial hygiene rather, is looking at things that might hurt you later. They're the ones that are going to talk to you about noise for your hearing loss issues, chemicals, cleaning agents, dust, so that we can take a look at making sure we keep your skin, eyes, and lungs safe. So those folks can help you there. The ergonomics is something that Rick is going to talk to you about a lot. And that is because we have a lot of ergonomic issues, and Rick can give you a lot of resources, because one of the highest claim frequency that we have are the sprains and strains. And so we get to see all that data of what's going on out there, and we can make sure we apply those resources appropriately. So risk management, onto risk management, my favorite topic, is kind of bringing all of those things together. We're looking at the rates, the industrial insurance rates. So once you hire one employee, you need to have an industrial insurance account. And that means you're paying insurance to cover those folks in case they get hurt. But we can help you so that you pay the absolute bare minimum on that insurance. So what we'll look at are safe practices, the connection between safe practices, management, your people that you hire, what you do with them, all of those things, the connections there, and keeping those rates down and managing those claims if they do happen. Early return to work, talking about claims if they do happen. Early return to work is another resource consultation that we have available. They can come out and help you put together proactive or reactive procedures to manage the claims that have happened and get those folks back to work as soon as possible, safely, and with the least amount of cost to the business. So all of those things combined, you don't need to choose one. They're all working together. Frequently, a business will have worked with all of these consultants at one time or another, sometimes in tandem. We go out together as needed and make sure that the businesses get the services they need. To do that, and Rick will talk about this a little bit more, is to go to the website. I want to focus a little bit on the risk management, if you don't mind for a second. I want to talk about the connection that I mentioned before. And this is where I really want to make sure that all businesses understand the connection between insurance, what they're paying on insurance, with the people, how you hire, who you hire, what you do with them once you've hired them, how you've trained them, how you treat them, makes a huge difference in your industrial insurance, because insurance is impacted by safety. If you've got great folks and you're treating them well and they're happy and they're working with you, your safety record is going to be great. If not so much. And that means that you're going to have claims. So if you're not hiring well, if you're not treating them well, if they aren't getting on board with the safety procedures, your claims will happen and the insurance is impacted. So all of these things are connected. So this is what the risk management really focuses on, and we'll make sure you get all the other consultation services as well. So to do that, you just go to the website, and Rick will review this with you again. I think repeating it is important, because it is just such a nice resource for you. Go to our website, click on request a safety consultation with L&I, and you can tell them what you want. Safety managers throughout the state will be looking at these requests, and they make sure that you get to the right consultant that you need based on what information you're requesting. So it's as easy as that. We call you, we schedule on your time. So this is something that for all businesses, whether you're just starting out or you've been around for a little while, is a great resource to save you some money, keep your business going, and make sure that you're just right there with being in compliance, and that you're keeping your folks working, and ultimately keep that business going and prospering. So give us a call, send us an email, let us know that you're interested. My name and number is also on the beginning of this presentation, which you'll have access to as well. Rick is going to delve really much more deeply now into the ergonomics and the sprains and strains that I mentioned. So Rick, I'm going to stop sharing, and it's all yours.
Thanks, Erin. Sorry, Lucy, you're muted. Will you?
I was just going to say thank you, Erin. That was an excellent overview. Go for it. Go for it, Rick.
Yeah, thanks, Erin. And thanks, Lisa. I will say before I launch into my part that if you are thinking you'd like to get some more help from L&I on your safety programs, a risk management consultation is really a great starting point, because they're the Swiss Army knives of what we do. They can help you look at programs. They can help you think about return to work. They can help you think through claims. And if hopefully you haven't had any injury claims among your employees, but they can let you know some of the consequences if you did have one. And if you do unfortunately have a claim, chances are it's going to be one of the ones that my group deals with, and that's sprains and strains. So we're talking about back injuries from lifting, hand and wrist injuries from doing things repetitively, shoulder injuries from a lot of reaching or lifting overhead. And they are, as Erin said, the most common issue that we see in workplaces. And so I thought it'd be a good idea to quickly give you an overview of the resources that are available to you on our website. It's our sprains and strains page. And what we do in our group is apply the principles of ergonomics to make things safer, to reduce the physical demands on employees. So examples, simple fixes could be, a warehouse taking anything that's heavy, anything that people have to lift frequently, and getting it up off the floor and having it at waist level, because that cuts the risk of a back injury in half. It could be that, somebody doing something really repetitive, say they're processing fish and they're cutting fillets of fish all day long. Just keeping a knife really sharp for that reduces the amount of force that workers have to apply, and that greatly reduces the injuries. So those are just a couple of quick examples. So what we have on our website, I think probably the best place to start is just to show you quickly the process that we have. There's links here on the very first page, and they're also repeated over here on the left side menu. So here's ergonomics process. And you can see it's 5 basic steps. So step 1 is involving employees because they are the experts at what they do. Every professional ergonomist I know spends a fair amount of time talking to employees when they're doing a consultation to try to make sure they're getting their input, because they know the problems and a lot of times they have some pretty good ideas for solutions too. Step 2 is finding hazards, and sometimes that's just going on a walkthrough of the workplace. And the advantage of really small businesses is you probably have a pretty good idea of what everybody does, but maybe you're thinking about it from the getting work done aspect and not necessarily the, oh, could this actually hurt somebody aspect of it. So it means going in with kind of a different set of glasses on to try to look for problems and, talk to employees, check in with them, see how they're feeling, and if there's anything they'd like to see changed. Step 3 is assessing hazards. And we have a number of tools that people could use, but a lot of times for smaller businesses, we suggest using simple solutions. And I'll very quickly go to this page because I think there's a lot here that some problems are just so basic and the answers to them are pretty straightforward that you might as well just go ahead and do it, right? So I mentioned, getting things up off the floor. And so the first one here is store it off the floor as the principle. And when we go to that, it's just a very simple tip sheet that talks about, what the fix would be, what the risk is if you don't fix it. And then there's some safety meeting talking points. And so if you have safety meetings where you're getting your crews together and you want to start addressing these one by one, you can just go and download this particular talking point sheet and use it in your meeting. Go back to the process again. Step 4 is where the magic happens, right? Fixing the hazard. So you can see the simple solutions are repeated there. And we have a number of tips and helpful tools. And then step 5 is just checking back in. After a couple of weeks of putting a solution in place, make sure everybody's comfortable with it. You haven't created any additional hazards. And down here under related resources, you can see there's an accident prevention program template for ergonomics that you can include in your accident prevention program. And then there's a little workbook for each one of the steps that just kind of talks you through it in a little more detail than is on the web pages. And maybe one of the most important resources available to you is a team of professional ergonomists here at L&I. And our salaries are paid for by everybody's workers' comp premium. So in a way, you've already hired us. You might as well bring us in to get some help. A few other things you might find useful. We have an ergonomics training page that has a series of training depending on what you do. Quite a bit here for different types of work. We also have a page devoted to office ergonomics. So both within the office itself, but also for home offices. So there's some self-help materials there that we think are pretty useful. Under our solutions, we have some basic tips. And again, the simple solutions that I already showed you. One of the things you might find also helpful is our ergonomic ideas bank. So sometimes you're looking for a solution, you know what the problem is already, but you're not sure how to fix it. So we've gathered up a lot of different ergonomic solution ideas, and you can search by your industry. So let's say you're in manufacturing, and then the hazard. So let's say you're concerned about repetitive movements, and you end up with a list of just different ideas that might or might not help depending on whether they apply to what you do. You can also narrow things down by keyword. It's always a risk typing this in because if you get too narrow, things might not show up. But we have at least 3 things available for sewing. So a few suggestions. So lots there that people can pull from as they're working with their employees to try and solve problems. And finally, if you just are curious about ergonomics consultations, want to read a little bit more, we have this Get Help with Ergonomics section that talks about who we are, the kind of things we do. There's some simple Q&As down here. Maybe the most important one that people think about is there a charge? And the answer is no. We don't charge for our services. You've already paid for them. So I'm going to stop sharing and see if there are any immediate questions. And if not, be turning it back over.
Rick, that was excellent. And I really appreciate the very specific ideas you had and ways, folks on the call can just translate the meaning of what you're saying to what businesses that they're currently working with and the issues they may have. I don't see specific questions right now. Let's go to Ming Ming. And I just want to say that one of the most valuable aspects of these webinars has been, based on our feedback from folks, is having a real life nonprofit partner share their experience and how they think about these topics. And so Ming Ming, that you're here and have a slide deck and perspective is really important. I've been fortunate to go to your incredible space and meet some of the entrepreneurs that you serve. And I think this presentation will be great. So why don't you go ahead?
Sure. Well, thank you so much for the introduction. And thank you again for the opportunity to be here. We're a nonprofit here in Northeast Seattle. So I'm the founder that I started this organization 6 years ago, really to combine 3 things. My compassion I cultivated as a pharmacist for over 2 decades, my love of fashion, and my desire to give back to our immigrant community, as I myself is an immigrant. So, the goal of our organization is really to see how we can get the women started and make sure that they can have a prosperous transition in the US through micro business development and skill training by using their handcrafting and sewing skills. Just give you a little background. Did you guys know that refugee women have the highest unemployment rate in the US? And do you know what caused that? It's mainly because they have difficulty to have access to jobs that will meet their needs. They have so many challenges, not able to afford childcare, transportation, English as a second language, all that compound to the fact that cause a lot of them become stuck at home, feeling isolated, depressed, and anxious. And this is especially true for these women who have already experienced war trauma. And about 8 years ago, I was a student at University of Washington studying a fashion certificate program. I was really disgusted to learn that 85% of textile end up in the landfill. And that's when I have this aha moment. You know, many of these refugee women come to the US already have sewing skills, just like my grandmother. She was able to put food on the table, raising 3 kids as a home-based seamstress. I recognize that sewing is a universal language. Why not put these women to work using their skills while diverting unwanted textile and creating what's called circular and equitable economy? And that's exactly what we do. So we are in Lake City, in the north part of the city, a neighborhood where we have over 22 languages spoken. And it's a place that will welcome, we have welcomed over 40 women in the last 6 years with all kinds of religious, cultural background. We have women coming from Afghanistan, Myanmar, Ethiopia, Pakistan, Morocco, Vietnam. It is a microcosm of the world here in Seattle. And like I said, a lot of these women, they never really have the opportunity to work. Actually, a lot of them earning their first paycheck in America in our program because none of the other employers are able to accommodate the special needs of this population. We recognize that their skills are important and how can we build a home-based program for these women to continue to thrive. So our place right now has become a what we call a hub, a sanctuary where our women can thrive by meeting other women so they're less isolated, coming here for sewing classes, learning new skills, and then can use that skill, start working from home. We do also have currently 4 artisans that have becoming our staff. They're here to help with production needs, from cutting to designing, to doing quality control, and also teach sewing classes. So as we grow, we like to expand more of our programs and administrative to our artisans as they continue to gain the confidence in English, gain the confidence in the work environment, and gain the confidence from the support that we receive from us. You can see on the right-hand corner, this is just a little glimpse about our staff. We are a small and nimble group of 8 administrative staff and 4 artisan staff that serve right now over 25 women in the Puget Sound area. A lot of our women are actually coming from the South End, and they do, you know, we have to also consider that once a week traveling with gas very expensive, and how can we continue to put less burden on them. So one of the things that we're working on right now is where 1 to 10 get invited, actually 1 to 10 in the world invited by Nest, who does the Ethical Handcraft Certification Program. We are going through a very vigorous process right now to ensure workers' safety and workers' rights. And for sure, we are here to at least a minimum wages for our artisans. And, you know, our goal is that with this certification, you allow us to open up more doors to have more partnership that would want to work with ethical handcraft. And this is also a way for us to hopefully expand to add more artisans. So right now we're in the middle of it, and we just finished artisan orientation to really have understand the manual of workers manual, their rights, and we actually translate that into multiple different languages. And we also just finished the first set of home visits, make sure their equipment are set up right, and look at what else they may need to do their work properly. Since we started this program, I am really proud to say that we have upcycled over 120,000 items and have diverted over 40,000 pounds of mainly textile out of landfills. This photo illustrates perfectly that our specialty is bags. We call ourselves Bag Guru. We make a lot of bags. And we also make other items such as masks, home decor, napkins, and pot holders and towels. And then as a complex, as a very complicated sleeping bag. So we are here to serve women with different sewing skills, from beginners to advanced. They all have a place here in our program. So here are the women we serve. As you can see, they are multicultural from all over the world. Most of them are mother with children. Some have as many as 6 children. The traditional workforce focuses on the deficit that need to go to English classes, need to learn how to drive and pay for childcare. It's just simply not possible for this group. So we are here to knock out all these barriers to ensure that if they just come to America as short as a few months, that you want your skill to provide for your family. In this case, your sewing skills, that we're able to get you connected, get you set up so that you can start becoming an important contributor of your family in terms of the financial well-being. So we love to see the story of women earning their first paycheck to buying their first car. We do have a couple women actually being here long enough and also with other family member working, purchase their first home. So whatever their American dreams might be, this is their first setup to be introduced to working in a micro-business environment in America. And we're here to help them to stitching new life, one sewing machine at a time. Thank you very much.
Beautiful. Wow. Okay, so I thought I knew more about what you did in your program, but I really didn't fathom all that's involved. When you walk into Ming Ming's space, there's a huge pile of cloths and beautiful fabrics that we're going to go to the landfill, and then you go to the other end and there are finished products that folks can use for fundraisers or to sell. And so it's pretty sweet. Thank you for that presentation, Ming Ming.
You're welcome.
So I want to just open this up, and also a great comment in here from William Dunbar. Great to see that you've incorporated sustainability and waste reduction into your business model. Indeed. So I'd like to just see if anyone has questions that they'd like to put into the chat. And if you don't, we have several questions that that we have heard from others. And I guess what I'd like to do, maybe Ming Ming, if you would, because you finished out, I'm just curious how you make home-based work happen. It's not easy. Some workplaces you have to install a computer and all kinds of software and cybersecurity, but when you're working with small home-based businesses, I'm just would love to hear how safety fits into that, or how you've been able to help these women build their home-based enterprises.
Well, remember, we're here to reduce barriers, and a lot of them don't even use computers.
Right.
Also, as a town that's really recognized the importance of high-tech workers, what about the very basic that we're doing around the world, which is sewing? Like I say, it's a universal language. So why should we make it difficult? If what they need is a good machine and good table, good lighting to set it up, and that's why we're there to help them. And and that will be the first thing that we're trying to work with them is, you need help with machinery. And we do have cases for women where they come from where was very little or no electricity. They were still using the traditional foot pedal sewing machine. So that will be something that we will have to transition them out, because we can't even find those. So understand where they're coming from and recognize it's a skill because the pandemic was a perfect example that in the beginning of March, in the middle of March, when 2020 hit, when nobody could purchase masks, and we as upcycler have a lot of bed sheets, and I recognize that we can't wait for these materials to come overseas. For the masks, it would be months, so we have to produce them. All of a sudden, our women become heroes. So I recognize that their sewing skill is vital for the safety and the health of our community. So we were able to make over 80,000 masks. And during that time, we also recognized, we're contacted by the Swedish hospital that their medical scrub gets stuck overseas. So we get a grant and start training women how to make, medical scrubs. So the sewing, it's important. So you don't need something complicated, but love to talk to Rick and Erin after this call. I think, we are definitely like to get more advice on how we can do better. As I mentioned, providing them a sanctuary, a place being financially independent, it's not good enough. We are looking for a higher standard, not because of the ethical handcraft certification program itself. I think just the workers' right and workers' safety, because they are a much more vulnerable population of not really understand our culture and our rules. So we should be the advocate for them. Make sure that they are not being, that they're not being taken advantage. Not like we're there to take advantage of them, but we want to make sure that, we are here to do the right thing, that, in the long term, not only they can start earning income, they will not have risk of injuries that can cause chronic problems.
Excellent. Excellent. What I also heard you say is that for the success of your nonprofit and for the women you're working with, you're going to voluntarily invite L&I into your space so that they can advise and consult with you about how to keep the women you're working with safe, both when they're in your facility and when they're at home. So that is a win for us, for sure.
Yeah, I appreciate it. I have to be honest, I wasn't sure exactly what L&I was doing. Oftentimes we kind of hear about it after fact. So as a still pretty young organization, I think it will be valuable to bring you in and have that conversation. I'm all about honesty and transparency, as I come from the career as a pharmacist for 20 years. It's one of the most trusted professions. So I will continue using that principle in how I'm going to operate here at Ray, that makes sure that every worker, every employee well-being is, it's on the top priority.
Well, it's a pretty high bar to reach, and I'm excited about that. So thank you very much. We have a question in the chat, and then we'll go to a question that came in the registration process. But in the chat, Suzanne Martin is one of has received a grant from WSMA for a food incubation project, Viva la Cocina. And they're working with food service entrepreneurs and small businesses, and they're interested in improving business practices. So in particular, they are focused on creating accessible commercial kitchen space in Tacoma's East Side. And I'm wondering if there's maybe some quick ideas you might have, Rick or Erin, about ways that Suzanne can incorporate safe practices, maybe invite you in for sure, but any quick ideas about practices they might incorporate.
Yeah, I can share that. I think with food prep especially, that's where a lot of the repetition comes in. And in addition to the idea of making sure all your tools are in good working order and your knives are sharp and everything, just making sure everything's at a good height for the type of work being done. So if it's something that requires a lot of precision, it should be a little bit higher, so that you can use smaller movements and have a good view of it without having to look down too much. If it requires more force, it should be down lower, down below your elbow level, so you can put a little more muscle and body weight into what you're doing. So, if you were, say, kneading bread dough, you would want that actually pretty low. That and just, making sure you have enough space to work in comfortably without feeling cramped, but that the things you grab often aren't too much of a reach, not like up overhead or having to bend way forward to get to them. I don't know, Erin, do you have anything to add?
Absolutely. Every time you set up a new workspace, every time a business starts and sets up their workspace. So if you're starting up a kitchen or the large sewing facility, not every home we might not look at, but when you're setting up any business, it's great to have a consultant look at your facility. So if you've got this big new kitchen you're setting up, have one of our consultants walk through it, invite them out, they'll walk through it. They give you another set of eyes. So when you're setting something up, they might notice something and say, tell me about this shelf. They might talk about making sure that it's strapped to the wall or in the ground well so that it doesn't fall over. They might see something that you don't notice because they're trained to. So that goes really well for new places that you're setting up, but also for places that are already in existence. If you've been in a facility for a long while, you might walk past some things that you might not notice, outlets without covers or something we see all the time, and you walk past it and we point it out and you go, I've never seen that, because you've walked past it every day. So sometimes you just get used to seeing things. So it's great to invite another set of eyes to come see your facility and just, get a fresh set of ideas in there.
I love it. Both excellent suggestions. I want to spend a little bit of time on a question that came in during the registration process. And this is from Luke Robert. And the question is, I'm particularly interested in supporting agencies or organizations whose employees utilize motorboats or perform non-commercial duties. So this group of boat operators are not classified by the Coast Guard as either recreational or commercial, and they include staff or natural resource agencies, ports, etc. As the only training provider in Washington dedicated to serving this demographic, I frequently have discussions with agency supervisors who become interested in obtaining basic standard motorboat operator training, but it's not easy. So I guess the question for you, maybe Erin, is if you could discuss or help this entrepreneur understand how to prioritize these training programs or these training resources for boaters and others that don't really have any touch or understanding of it.
Yeah, that might be a tricky question, making sure that I understand where Labor and Industries has jurisdiction over is employees of businesses. So we're protecting the employees. So, but we also can cover the employer. We might have owner elected coverage. So we're looking at a couple of bits of safety here. His own, in doing that training, we could consult with him as a business owner to make sure he was creating a safe environment for himself or any employees. Being able to promote the fact that he is doing safety training out there for the folks that we're out there finding that aren't doing the safest thing. We do have a maritime group. We have some folks who specialize in maritime, because the rules there are they go back and forth between federal and state. And so we have a group that specifically could work with him to find out where that line is, where he needs to be in contact with federal, where he needs to be in contact with state. So I would say that Luke would benefit from getting a hold of us, and we'll get him connected with our maritime group.
Excellent, excellent. And I guess one other part of his question had to deal with what he suggests is the hundreds, if not thousands, of Washington employees who operate motorboats as part of their daily non-commercial duties. So I don't know how that would work if they're not on the job, or maybe it's as they're getting to their workplace, but that may be a good conversation we could pull aside for him and you folks at a later date, if that would work for you.
Absolutely, because that sounds like something we could dig into a little bit deeper, because if it's non-working related, then we might have some other resources, but if it's work related, we can absolutely dig into it and look at and throw everything we've got at it. Love to have that conversation with Luke. Excellent.
And Suzanne, really appreciated your suggestions about workplace and the food incubator. So thank you for that. I wanted to just go and just ask a couple of more questions. One of them, you mentioned early on, Rick, is that the first thing is to do an assessment and prevent injury. And so aside from having them have you come and consult either into a new workplace, Erin, that you suggested, or in an existing workplace, that employer could go to the website and look at what recommendations you have on your website. Any other suggestions about workplace injury prevention strategies?
Yeah, well, I mean, I'll go back to my first suggestion is that starting with a risk management consultation would be a great first step. They can not just look at your claims, but they'll also have a general sense of, for your industry, what are the likely types of injuries. And they can help you make sure you have the right programs in place to help support prevention, and also just being prepared in case, the unfortunate thing happens and you do have a claim. You have a lot of times the best practice is to know what you're going to do in advance, right? If you have an employee who is injured, do you have something that they can do, like a transitional duty, if the doctor says they can't do the job that they were doing when they got injured? And having something, a plan ahead of time can help make sure that that employee doesn't end up getting lost, ended up spending too much time off work, those sorts of things. So the more you can, hope for the best, but plan for the worst, I think is the best thing possible. And I will also just say that, going back to, like, for example, the question about designing a food service area, and walking through and looking at it. Even better is if you're getting started, before you even built anything, that's really the best time to plan in some safety features and consult with somebody on just what you're thinking of having. Because when it's still on the drawing board, the changes are much less expensive than if you've already built it and somebody comes in later and says, yeah, that really needs to change to meet code or to keep employees safe.
Yeah, absolutely. And I would add to that, if I might. Rick, you nailed it. And one other thing I would add is that injury prevention isn't always rule-based. It's not. So and that's why what risk managers really focus on is not the things that we just have jurisdiction over. It's also things that we can tell you based on our years of experience and just things we've learned that work best that are best practices for business. So when you're looking at how do you keep your employees safest, it's not just to have a great written accident prevention plan. It is also to make sure that you have a great culture and your hiring practices, that you're hiring people that want to work there, and that once you get them, that you provide them all the resources and training they need to do their job successfully, and that you support them. And as Rick said, with the return to work, that's a great mention. When people feel that you've got their back, when you're the employer and you've got their back, and they know if they do get injured, even you've done everything to prevent an injury, but if they do get injured and you've got their back, it really, really does help them really work for that company and work safely. So they're going to give you a little bit more of themselves if you hire them from the neck up and not just from the neck down. So if you're just hiring a body, you're not getting the full picture. So if you hire all of them and really incorporate all of them into that business, you're getting the safest workplace and the best production as well. So they go hand in hand.
Beautiful, excellent question. There's a quick question also in here. How often do you deal with accessibility claims and or implement design standards to help make workplaces more accessible for people with disabilities?
See, that's not something that I deal with at all. ADA, we would refer that to ADA. Rick, you might have some ideas though, ergonomic wise.
Yeah, and it's really that the dividing line between are we talking about actual accessibility under the ADA, the Americans with Disability Act, or are we talking about general ergonomics things that are, I consider them more along the lines of universal design. Like, let's make the workplace equally accessible to everyone who might be using it. When you So if you're talking sort of universal design, sure, we can help with that, and we can access some of the ADA recommendations just to make sure we're not leading you astray. Yeah, universal design. But if it's specific to an individual worker with a disability that you're concerned about, I think the folks who do that for a living, the Northwest ADA Center is where I send a lot of people when they have questions about ADA in the workplace.
Fabulous, fabulous. We're almost to the end of our time. I had one last question. A lot of us have a day job with a desk, and we sit down and we're sitting all day. Any quick suggestions on helping workers do a better job of keeping themselves safe as well as their employees who are at the desk all the time?
I will say the advice I give to workers a lot is don't get so caught up in what you're doing on the job that you forget about yourself. So don't sit there and work straight through for 4 hours and then realize that you're achy and sore, or don't focus on just on getting something done to where you're ignoring a safety hazard that's right near you, like a loose electrical wire or something that could really hurt you.
Wonderful. Okay, here's what I'll say. So for those of you who are watching now and those who will watch later on with a video replay, I encourage all of you to take the link to the webpage once we publish this and send it to every business that you're working with. That way they will have access to this video presentation. Secondly, I would encourage you all to put links in an email to your employees to where they can go on L&I to learn about these tools that they themselves can use as employees to reduce risk. And then if you are working with businesses that have a workplace that maybe they're starting a business, have a no-cost consultation, encourage them to call L&I. It won't cost them any money, it'll save them time. I'll say one time I went into this studio, and this artist had a kiln, but they did the clay work here, and then they went all the way across the room to put it in the kiln, and then they had the rack where they dried clear on the other side, and it just had no real sweet, smooth process. And I think having a consultation from all of you might be a really good, excellent first step. I want to say really humbly, thank you to all of you for your excellent presentations, your thorough review of the material. Ming, the information you shared about your workplace and what you do was really beautiful. And I encourage everyone here to go to L&I, learn about these programs, and be able to really help the workers in the workplace be safer so your businesses that you're serving are stronger and more profitable as they move forward in a safe environment. Okay, so we will end this conversation today. And yes, so Isabel, I'm assuming she's assuming that Spanish-speaking reps for L&I consultations, is that yes, and Erin, it is true. So if you have Spanish language entrepreneurs, they can have their no-cost consultation in Spanish. All right, without further ado, thank you everyone. Have a great afternoon, and we will see you another time.